Do you feel like you're floundering under the weight of all the decisions in your home rental, remodel, or design project? And you just wish you could pick the brain and chat it out with a designer to get the clarity you seek? Well, now you can.
Hello, Latoya. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi.
We are going to be doing an Ask a Designer session, which is super fun. It's a brainstorming opportunity. But first, why don't you kick it off and fill me in a little bit more in terms of where you're at and where you're getting stuck.
Okay, so we have been in this house for maybe 2 months. So I haven't really done anything to it. It's more of a traditional style home. So I wanted to kind of make it a little bit more modern.
Okay.
So I'm kind of stuck on, should I paint the kitchen cabinets to modernize it? What is the best window treatments for a house that has a lot of detail and crown molding around the windows? So that's kind of my focus that I wanted to start over. One of the major things I wanted to do with moving in is kind of tighten up or make it the kitchen area and the keeping area a little bit more modern.
Okay, perfect. That helps. Thank you. Okay, so my first question really would be, what is the end goal that you were trying to achieve in terms of your house overall, as well as just, I know from the photos that you sent, it's kind of an open concept between your kitchen to your dining to your living area. So what is the end goal that you're trying to achieve between the three?
I still like the open concept. I am considering making the opening or the archway between the kitchen and the dining room a little bit smaller so I can define the keeping area a little bit more.
Okay.
But I guess my overall is I want to brighten the house more. Because it has some darker tile in the kitchen. And while it has a shade of white paint on the walls, the ceilings have a shade of brown paint. So overall, brighten it up more, make it look a little fresher.
Okay. And a taupey brown on the ceilings is honestly a very interesting choice from the previous owners. Very first thing I would say is paint that, but
yeah,
we'll get to that point.
Okay.
Okay, so we are looking to define the kitchen area a little bit more, brighten up the space overall. Okay. Yes. So really, what is working right now and what's not working? Kitchen, obviously, but what else in the space between those three is working and not working?
I guess just the layout maybe of the kitchen itself is not working.
Okay.
I would say. Yeah.
And then do you have any design plans or vision ideas in terms of this project?
I don't.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
So first thing in terms of design, everyone kind of thinks the very first thing is deciding on an idea of like, let's brighten up the kitchen and then let's go white and let's just do it. But without a clear idea in terms of what it is that we're trying to achieve, so that purpose and really understanding, we are trying to freshen it up, we're trying to define the space, and then also what really is that vision and that plan of how we're going to get there. It's really hard to know what it is that you're trying to do. So that's when we start to get overwhelmed. We start to look at 1,000 photos and think, well, that can work, this can work, and well, what do I actually want to do? So the very first thing that I would recommend doing is really defining what's working, what's not, and kind of those feelings that you're trying to create between those three spaces. Are we looking to really create, I know you're wanting to brighten the space up, but are we trying to create a gathering space, a warm, welcoming opportunity for everyone to come and mingle? And then what do those emotions mean for you? Because if we're trying to create that opportunity for a gathering space between the three, how you lay out your furniture and then how that flow works between the three rooms, that is what's going to create those feelings of invitation and gathering and meeting points. So really define those first, and then we go into the design aspect of what is it from a design sense is going to create those ideas.
Okay.
So that's the very first thing that I would recommend. And then I know we want to brighten up and we want to refresh the kitchen, But there's a lot of things you could do in there. So really, do you have a budget? And then what would be that budget?
Okay. I haven't defined a budget, but I know I do have some room for a budget. I didn't want to basically rip out everything and start over. And there's real wood cabinets in the kitchen. So I wanted to kind of use those. So I'm okay with painting the cabinets, changing out the hardware, and a question mark on if I needed to change out the granite, like was that necessary?
So the reason I asked for
And-
budget is because there's a lot of things that you could do. So it really just depends on where it is that you'd like to spend your money. And and then also between, again, bringing it back to that purpose and the design plan is if you will have a say, I'm going to throw a number out there. Say you have $20,000 that you'd like to spend in order to create a space that is inviting and works within the 3 zones. So then we go to where are we going to allocate and sprinkle this money in. So then we look at what our priorities are. So we look at what it is that we'd like to do, and then we kind of create a priority list, and then we know how and where we would like to put that money. Because it's very easy to get overwhelmed, especially when we're looking at the gram and at Pinterest, and we're thinking we need all these things and we need to do it all, like rip out the kitchen and start new, which is not the case in your kitchen. The only thing I would say if you wanted to rip it out would be if the flow and like how it functionally works, then that's the only time that I would be like, yeah, let's rip it and start new. But there's a lot you can do with this kitchen as it is to brighten it up.
Okay.
So
the only thing that I kind of agreed on was kind of doing it in phases. Like, let's start with if we're going to paint the cabinets, let's do that and see how we feel about that before we moved on to, do we need to change the granite, so forth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes and no. I very much agree in terms of splitting the projects up, one from a budgetary sense, in terms of we're going to do this first and then we're going to go down rather than do it all at once. But in order to really know what you're trying to create from a vision sense, we need to, and like what it's going to look like, we need to first consider how we're going to achieve that, bringing it back to the purpose, which is brightening it up and creating an inviting space, right? So with that, that's what we're going to focus on. And then we kind of create the design around it. So in your kitchen, the things that are making it dated are 3 things. You have beautiful crown molding. I wouldn't touch it. The lights over the island, the very ornate brackets on the higher portion of the high top seating area, the fact that you've got staggered cabinets at the top heights, and then the wall covering over the window covering over the window. Those are really the items that are dating space. And yes, the tone and the lacquer, the shininess of the cabinets, but those items are like the key ones. So if we look at that, then it's okay, well, what do we want? How are we going to achieve that? What do we want to do? I would honestly, your scallop tap handles hardware, those are very much back in trend. I would keep those. I would update the poles that are on your uppers, because again, those are very like traditional with kind of the X look. I don't mind the fleur-de-lis tile that's on your backsplash. It's the color of the rest of your backsplash tiles, which I know they picked because it goes with your floor tile, but that's what's competing with your countertop. Okay. And I know you have an inspiration photo, which is, so we've got like these, the fleur-de-lis, I would keep that. And again, that's why I asked on budget, because like you could spend the money and you could rip out your entire backsplash and then retile it with something different, depending again on what that end vision is that you're looking to achieve. There are less expensive ways of revamping your tile as well. You can paint it. You can get the vinyl tile, basically they're kind of like decals where it's like a sheet that you just kind of stick on. It's like press-on tiles, and they're a little thick, and then they go on and they can cover over an existing. You can also tile on top of tile. So rather than spending the cost of demoing, so that's where the budget comes in. So it's like, where do you want to spend the money
Yeah.
in terms of what option you go with?
Okay.
We'll get to the window treatment in a second. So then this is how your living room space interacts. I would say that for the light, where is it? That's over the dining area. This one with the fan. If you need it to be a fan, I would do it as a ceiling mounted one. That's far too low for a fan to be.
Right. I actually am going to remove it and do another like recessed lighting fixture.
Yeah.
Get rid of
Okay.
both of those. And the hanging pendant light,
Yeah.
I plan to get rid of that as well.
Okay. So then this is your dining space?
That is, so in the back with the faux fireplace
Mhm.
thing, we're gonna remove that. That came with the home, but that's kind of the keeping area. And then where you see the piano, where its temporary space is right now, that's actually like a breakfast nook area. But I don't think I need to use it as a breakfast nook because not far there's a space for a dining room, a dining area, and then I have the bar stools. So I just don't feel like I need another table with a breakfast nook table.
No, because where the fan is, that's where your dining table would be, correct?
No, there's actually no. It's actually
Oh, the whole
off
other
of the
room.
living room is a area for the dining room table.
Okay, so then
Yeah.
what was your intent for this space to be used as?
I wanted that to be my keeping area, a defined keeping area.
Okay. Keeping area?
Yes, like a keeping room off of the kitchen, like another space where I can have sofas or chairs, maybe a
Okay.
TV, but basically another sitting area
Okay.
instead of the main living room.
So like a lot more, less formal seating area.
Correct.
Casual. Okay, I got
That's
it.
right.
I get it now.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay, so in that sense, what you're definitely gonna want to do is get a very large, overly large area rug and very kind of lush, not like an overpiled one, but kind of like a jute with a knitted one, but an overly large one to really define that zone because you've got the angles. And then that will create the warmth that you need because you're wanting to be more plush and to have like a seating area, especially because it's tile. Tile is a very cold, it's a more kitchen kind of hard surface. It's not as warm and inviting as something that you would have in a living space. So we need to define that living space by having a very overly large area rug.
Okay.
And then with that, because you have a more taupey toned tile floor, stay away from browns because it will conflict. You could do like a cream or an off-white as your area rug. Or you could also go with a color and have it be like a patterned color carpet. And then that's how you pull the color for styling that area. And then that is what you flow into the colors that help you pick what you might do in your kitchen. And then you bring that into the living space that's directly through the archway. So that area rug, you can either do it as a neutral or you could have it as something that's like a patterned with some color to it. And then those are the colors that you pull to create that flow between the three zones.
Okay.
So that would be for that one. And then especially if it's a living space, then definitely don't have it as a hanging light because it will just like visually block you. Okay, so then we'll remove, I would suggest you have to have some type of a bracket, the way that high top counter is designed, especially if somebody leans on it, that's why the bracket's there. But I would suggest replacing that with something that's a bit more modern. You could just do a standard L. That will help modernize it. And then this is your living space through. Yeah, so if we did a very large defined area rug, you could pull from your sofas and have it be that kind of off gray tone as well to bring it in. Definitely paint your ceiling white, that will help brighten it. And then this was the kitchen in your old home, right?
Right, which I did love the kitchen.
Okay. I wouldn't suggest going fully white on everything, just from the way that your house, the other colors that are in your space. If you did all of this on white, it would compete with the taupe floors. And I
Mhm.
think it would make your floors look more orange.
What would you say is the best color tone? Like, I don't know if you can see from the living room, it actually has like built-in entertainment system.
Yes,
Should I go for the same shade that's
for your
in that
walls,
system
for
to
your
the
walls,
cabinets?
or for your cabinets.
For the cabinets.
For the cabinets, yeah, you could
Mhm.
do that. I was gonna I looked at some options for you.
Okay.
So I would actually keep your black granite.
Keep it.
Yes,
Okay.
I would keep that, and then I would do the rest of your design around the dark countertops.
Okay.
Granite is an excellent product. A lot of the quartz is very much popular these days, but granite allows you the versatility where you can throw anything at it and it will buff out, and it's not going to get scratches. It's not going to absorb wine or stains, where quartz actually will. Quartz is a man-made product, and it has an epoxy base to it. So eventually those resins will break down. It is prone to staining, especially the white ones, and you can't put hot pots directly on it. So if
Okay.
that's all, like, that's something that you functionally do in how you operate in your kitchen, where you put pots directly on your
Mhm.
counters, you can't do that with quartz. So I would actually keep your granite, and then work your design into that. So you could do a off cream. I wouldn't do a white, like a very, very white that you had in your previous home, but you could do an off cream. And then here is just a plain subway tile that you could either do it as a sheet, where you can just go right on top of your existing tile, or you remove your backsplash and you do a new backsplash.
Mhm.
This is very, very modern, where you could keep your bases and you could reinstain them, and then you could do some of your uppers more of a white.
Okay.
But again, this is where, like, I've done them all where you're keeping your countertop. I wouldn't suggest you change it.
Okay.
And then this is more of a traditional version, which for you, see how they've got the cap hardware, and then they've just switched to knobs and then some pulls on the actual doors. It's more traditional in the sense that it's got the more gilded feet. It's not just a straight toe kick on all the bases. And then they've got these types of brackets, their decoration, but that's also something that you could look at instead of the very ornate metal brackets that you have.
Mm-hmm.
That brings in the traditionalness to an also more modern kitchen with the white and then the darker countertops.
Okay.
And then they've just done it as a glass backsplash. This is looking at your window treatment. So we'll get to that in a second. You could also fully paint them. So there's a lot of options for the kitchen. I do agree that the color of the existing cabinetry is too red. And that's the reason why it looks off, because it doesn't even actually work with your flooring.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it ties back to the budget, where it's like, if you're wanting to have that space that's right off the kitchen as more of a inviting secondary seating area, then do we redo the floor? Do we find a floor that's similar to the hardwood, and do we carry that throughout, or do we keep the tile? So again, it's like, what are your priorities and what it is that you'd like to do, and then where do we want to allocate those funds within your budget?
Right. My preference would be to keep the flooring. I don't love the flooring, but it extends to such a big area.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be taking up a lot of flooring, because it even goes down the hall, bathrooms, the utility room. So it's expensive. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. You could paint it if you really detested it and you're like, I cannot live with tiled flooring. You could paint it.
Okay.
There are other ways where we can actually work with the colors and the undertones with the taupe in the tile, and have the colors of the countertops and how you style the rest of your space work with it. So then it's not feeling like it's out of place. It's feeling like it's brought into your style and it's brought into your home. So these are all, it's taupe, so it's got some orangey tones, it's got some creams, it's got some little darker browns to it. So I would
Mhm.
actually, for if you want to paint your cabinets, I would pick one of the colors that's in the undertones in your taupe flooring. And I would use that as what you're going to paint your cabinets in.
Mhm.
And
Would
then
you
you have the granite black countertops, and then we just put new hardware on.
Would you suggest that I keep like the dark bronze hardware, or should it be more like a pick up the color from the fridge, like a pewter or nickel?
Um, that honestly depends on what color you end up going with for the countertop or for the cabinets.
Mhm.
Bronze and oil bronze hardware are much more on trend these days. Polished chrome, brushed chrome are, I mean, I love them personally, but they are more on the wayside outwards.
Okay.
And oil bronze is timeless. It's always going to stay in. I would say stay away from like your brasses and your bronzes, which are very
Okay.
much on trend right now. And oil bronze is always going to stay in. I would switch out your uppers, which are the cross kind of pulls, and get actual pulls, or knobs, depending upon what your preference is. But I would definitely switch out the hardware on your uppers.
Mhm.
And then you have a 3 pendant light over top of your island. You could either do a long and linear, or you could do 2 very large ones, but I would definitely suggest you change out the lighting, because that's also what's dating your space. Oh, and then you
Yeah.
have another pendant over your sink. I just noticed that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can put a plate on top of that and remove it, and maybe do 2 wall sconces that come down and give you the lighting over your sink, or
Mhm.
replace it with a pot.
Mhm.
That kind of style of a drop pendant over a sink is also a little bit more on the older style kind of direction.
Mhm.
If you have the budget and it interests you, I would consider boxing in the upper portions of your cabinetry, and then doing more like crown molding it so that it blends into the crown molding that's at the top of your
Mhm.
actual walls. That will increase the height in your space, and it will modernize your kitchen.
So bring the lower, bring it to the height of the tallest cabinet, or bring them up to the ceiling.
So you keep the cabinets as is, you remove
Mhm.
the crown molding at the top of the cabinets, and then you basically create like a wall where it's put to the edge of the top of the cabinets, and you frame it with like 1x2s up
I
to the
see.
top, and you create a box, and then you clad it, and then you put the same crown molding that you have in your room, like on the top of the ceiling.
Mhm.
You remove it, and then you carry it around the top of your cabinetry, and it will modernize your kitchen. It will also
Gotcha.
increase the height of it, because
Gotcha.
visually you're creating a very long line, and then your eye won't notice the staggerness in your cabinets anymore. It will just notice the full height.
Okay.
So yeah, I would definitely paint them. The color that you paint is really going to be up to you in terms of what that overall design thought process will be, but I would pull from a color from your tiles.
Mhm.
Does that help answer your question for your kitchen?
It does.
Okay.
The only question I have is, I don't know how good from the pictures if you can see the
Mhm.
actual trim around the house. Like the trim is a little bit darker, or is slightly darker than the actual wall color. Should I paint the cabinets the color of the trim? Would that be a good
Okay.
suggestion?
Yeah, you can do that too. I mean, I don't think it's not a white, right? It's like
No,
a
it's not.
cream. Yeah,
It's
then you
like a
can do that
cream.
as well. Yeah. And then it will just look like it's carried through. And then I think it's like a satin or a pearl finish, so it doesn't look like
Mhm.
it's very, very shiny. So then that would work as well, because that would be an appropriate finish for cabinetry.
Okay.
These
All right.
are highly lacquered cabinets though, so in order to paint them, you're gonna need to strip them,
Mhm.
which is gonna be slightly labor intensive, just to give you the full warning of that.
Okay. All right.
And then to answer your other question in terms of windows, you do have beautiful crown molding on your windows. That being said, it is very high and it's very heavy, and it's very close to the crown molding on your actual walls. So you don't even really have the height to put a rail above it. And it would also look funny because it's very deep crown molding that's on your windows.
Right.
So what I would actually suggest you do is this version. They've given you 3 options. This is going to cut your room in half. So I wouldn't put it directly above your window. I wouldn't even put it halfway. I would do option 3, where it sits directly, the rail of your drapery sits directly at that point where the crown molding curves in.
Mhm. And the blinds can go. They were just there, but I do want to get rid of the blinds.
Yep.
You know.
So for you, it would be this line right here. That's where you would
I
mount
see.
2 side posts on here.
Okay.
And then you would have the rail mount directly below it. And you're not going to find a rail that's the same color off cream as your windows. So
Mhm.
don't bother really with what color that is, because you're going to paint it to match.
Mhm.
So then the rail itself kind of disappears along with the 2 brackets on the side. And then you'll have lovely drapery that comes down,
Mhm.
which would be similar to this. See how it's
Ah.
done, where it's gone lightly or directly below
I
that
see
like
that.
high point of the crown,
I
and
see
then the
that.
drapery just hangs on the side.
Okay.
Theirs has a little bit more space, but it's a similar example where they have crown molding on the ceilings, and then they have the crown molding above the windows, and it's like, where do you put your window
Mhm.
treatments? This is where how you do it, because this is going to help your eye again elongate upwards.
Mhm.
Because you're not going to see the weight of the crown molding above the window anymore. You're going to just
Mhm.
see this long line, and it's going to then visually make the window seem not as heavy
Mhm.
and more proportional to the space.
For the drapery with my window, do you
Mhm.
suggest it's just 1 panel on each end, or should I have like a panel in between each window?
A panel in between each window. Let me just check. Oh, you mean doing it as like 1 panel per window?
Oh, like just 1 panel at each end, like 1. Then I have the 4 windows and then another panel at the end, or should I have like a panel separating each window?
No, well, if you're removing the actual blinds and you're using the drapery, not just for like an aesthetic purpose, also
Mhm.
to reduce light, then how you measure drapery is you take the overall width and then you divide it by 3, and that's kind of your panel length. And then
Mhm.
that will tell you how much overage you need. Because let's say your entire windows are 108 inches. I'm just throwing a number out there.
Mhm.
If you divide that by 4, and then you just pick, okay, this equals the amount of width that I need for my drapery panels. When you close them, they won't overlap enough, and they'll be pulled completely tight, and you'll always end up with it it's like flowing properly when they're opened.
I see.
Closed,
Okay.
other way around, closed. So
Mhm.
there needs to be a little bit of overage in the drapery panels in order for it to not be pulled completely tight, so that you don't end up with the little gap in the seams between, and then they create that nice drape when they are closed.
Okay.
So you would still have 4 panels, but you would stack the panels 2 on one side and 2 on the other, which will frame that really lovely, and then they'll cascade and they'll fall really nicely. And then when you need to close them, it has enough of a give
Mhm.
to it that then they don't seem like they're pulled too tight.
Got it. Okay.
Does that help for you?
That was very helpful. I actually do like that the image that you have up,
Mhm.
because I was not able to visually see like what do I do? Do I need to get shades?
Yeah.
But I really do like panels better.
I think if you did like shutters or shades, it would again, same kind of that you're experiencing, where the blinds just feel like they're not really doing anything and they feel heavy themselves. It's because that top portion of the crown molding on top of your windows is so large.
Yeah.
It's making your windows feel really heavy, where we need something to lighten it up and to visually bring our eyes upwards. And the only way to do that is through drapery.
Yeah.
You could do
Okay.
blinds still for like the actual light factor, and then these become aesthetic. It's really up to you.
Okay.
Yeah. And then again, these ones are patterned, where it is an off cream and they've got this lovely little kind of geometric pattern to them, that if you choose to do something like this, tie that color into, if you're going to do a color on your area rug, tie that through from whatever it is that you would bring into those. So then it kind of relates to it, and your eyes going from your floor up to the long line of your drapery and then tying into the space. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful for you, and I hope you know what it is that you need to kind of figure out from your design vision, and then overall what it is that you'd like to achieve, and then how to bring that into your kitchen and the rest of your space.
Thank you, Gabriella. I really appreciate it. This has been very, very informative.
Perfect. I'm so happy. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You found this helpful, be sure to give us a like, hit subscribe to be notified when new videos drop, and be sure to share this with someone who could use a design boost. And if you're struggling in your very own remodel, or design project and want your very own design brainstorming session, be sure to click the link in the description below and snag your spot today.